reality isn't as solid as it appears. For most of our lives, we've been taught to believe that what we see is all there is, that life is fixed, predictable, and unchanging. But there's a deeper truth, one that ancient wisdom has whispered for centuries and modern science is only now beginning to confirm. What you see is not the whole story. Imagine this with me for a moment. Life isn't a movie that's already been filmed, playing out frame by frame with no room for change. It's more like an endless ocean, full of infinite possibilities, each one waiting to take shape. And here's the part that might take your breath away: the way you look at that ocean. The focus of your attention and the vibration of your emotions. That is what determines which wave rises and which story unfolds. It's like standing in a dark theater. Behind the curtain, there are dozens of sets ready, countless actors prepared to play their roles. Nothing has begun yet. Then, a single spotlight shines on one stage, and suddenly, a story comes to life. Your awareness works just like that spotlight. Wherever you shine it, reality begins to take form. When I first began to understand this, it felt almost overwhelming. I used to think the world around me was happening to me. If something went wrong, I blamed luck, fate, or someone else's choices. But over time, as I paid attention to my own patterns, I realized something profound. Life wasn't just happening to me. It was also happening through me. You see, your thoughts are not harmless whispers in your mind. Your feelings aren't just private little storms no one else can see. Both are signals, like radio frequencies, constantly interacting with the invisible field of energy that surrounds us all. And that field, what some call the quantum field, responds not to your words, but to your vibration. Think of it like tuning a radio. If you tune to a station playing soft, soothing music, that's what you'll hear. If you switch the dial to static and noise, that's what floods your ears. The station doesn't care about what you want to hear. It only plays what you are tuned into. Life works in exactly the same way. The reality you experience is always a reflection of the station you're tuned to within yourself. This is why two people can walk through the same room and have completely different experiences. One person sees opportunity and beauty, while the other sees only struggle and limitation. It's not the room that changes. It's the lens they're looking through, shaped by their thoughts, beliefs, and most importantly, their emotional state. When you understand this, something inside you begins to soften. You realize you don't have to fight so hard to control the outside world. You don't have to push and strain, trying to rearrange the pieces of life like a puzzle. Instead, you can turn inward. You can begin to shift your attention, to raise your inner frequency, and allow the external world to reflect that new energy back to you. This doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. It means you stop forcing and start aligning. Like a river that flows naturally toward the sea, you begin to move with life rather than against it. The effort you use to pour into struggle transforms into ease. The resistance begins to dissolve. And here's the most beautiful part. The moment you truly embrace this, you no longer feel like a victim of circumstance. You begin to see yourself for what you really are, a conscious creator, shining your inner spotlight on the stage of reality, choosing which story you will bring to life. So today, as we pull back the curtain together, I invite you to see your own life differently, not as something fixed or predetermined, but as a living, breathing field of infinite potential. Everything you've ever desired already exists in this field, waiting for you to focus on it with clarity and trust. You don't need to change the world outside of you. You only need to shift the way you look at it. Because the truth is, you are not just a character in this play. You are also the author, the director, and the light that brings the story into being. And the moment you remember that, reality itself begins to change before your very eyes. 1. The power of stillness and non-reactive observation. There is a kind of stillness that most people never truly experience. A stillness that goes beyond silence, beyond the absence of noise. In today's world, it can feel almost impossible to find. We are surrounded by constant motion notifications, conversations, expectations, and an endless stream of things demanding our attention. It's no wonder that stillness feels like a luxury, something reserved for rare moments when life finally gives us a break. But here's what I've learned. Through my own journey, stillness isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the very ground where transformation begins. When you are caught in the noise of the world, it's easy to believe you must react to everything. A comment, a problem, a piece of news. Each one feels urgent, as though your very survival depends on responding right away. You end up like a small boat, tossed about by every wave, powerless to direct your own course. But when you choose stillness, something extraordinary happens. You begin to notice that between the event and your reaction, there is a space, a small, sacred pause. In that pause, you have a choice. You can fall into old patterns, anger, fear, defensiveness, or you can simply observe. This is not about ignoring what's happening or pretending it doesn't matter. It's about standing in the eye of the storm, steady and aware. While the winds swirl around you, when you observe without reacting, you create what I like to call the space of possibility. It's like opening a window in a stuffy room and letting in fresh air. In this space, energy can begin to reorganize itself naturally, without you forcing it or trying to control every detail. It's a place where harmony can return on its own. At first, this may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. We are so conditioned to do something, to fix, to act, to fight. Stillness can feel like weakness, as though you're not doing enough. But true stillness is the opposite of weakness. It's strength in its purest form. Think of a lake on a windy day. When the surface is choppy, you can't see anything clearly. The reflections are distorted. But when the wind settles and the water becomes still, the surface turns into a perfect mirror. Only then can you see the sky, the trees, and the truth of what's around you. Your mind works the same way. When you stop reacting to every ripple and wave, you create clarity. In that clarity, solutions emerge effortlessly, sometimes in ways your logical mind could never have planned. This is where what we often call miracles begin to appear. I've experienced this countless times. There have been moments when everything in my life seemed to be falling apart. My instinct was to panic, to grab hold of things, and try to put them back together. But the harder I clung, the worse things became. It wasn't until I let go, until I sat in stillness, and simply observed that a new path revealed itself. Not because I forced it, but because I created space for it to arrive. This kind of observation is not passive. It's not about sitting back and doing nothing. It's about engaging with life from a place of presence rather than reaction. From here, your actions become clearer, more aligned, and far more powerful. Instead of adding chaos to chaos, you bring calm, and that calm transforms everything around you. When you practice this, you begin to see the world differently. A harsh word no longer feels like an attack, but like a wave. You can simply watch, rise and fall. A challenge no longer feels like a wall, but like an invitation to respond from a deeper place within yourself. Over time, this way of being becomes a way of living. You start to realize that peace isn't something you find out there, it's something you create in here. And from that inner peace, a quiet kind of magic flows into every part of your life. So the next time life comes rushing at you with noise and urgency, pause, take a slow, deep breath. Notice the space between the event and your reaction. And in that space, choose stillness. It's in that sacred, quiet place that the true power of transformation lies. It's where the invisible threads of reality begin to weave themselves into harmony. And it's where you'll discover that what you once called a miracle is simply the natural result of aligning with the deeper flow of life. 2. We see through old lenses. Most of us believe we see life as it really is. We assume that what we perceive with our eyes and process with our minds is the truth. But if you've lived long enough and if you've ever taken a quiet, honest look inside, you start to realize something humbling. We don't see life as it is. We see it as we are. Every experience you've ever had, every word you've ever heard, every wound you've ever carried has shaped the lens through which you view the world. It's like wearing a pair of glasses you forgot you had on. The smudges, scratches, and colors of those lenses distort what you see, yet because you've worn them for so long, you assume this distorted view is reality itself. From childhood, we inherit beliefs from our families, our culture, and our surroundings. Some of these beliefs are loving and supportive, but others are rooted in fear, shame, and misunderstanding. Over time, these beliefs become like invisible filters layered over our eyes. We don't question them because we don't even realize they're there. For example, imagine someone who grew up in a household where love was conditional, where affection had to be earned through achievement or obedience. That person might grow into adulthood seeing every relationship through the lens of, I must prove my worth. No matter how kind their partner is, no matter how much love is freely offered, they can't fully receive it. Why? Because they aren't truly seeing what's in front of them. They're seeing through the old lens of their past. I've lived this myself. There was a time when I didn't realize how much of my pain came not from the world itself, but from the stories I was telling about it. When something hurt me, I thought it was because life was cruel or people were untrustworthy. It never occurred to me that part of my suffering came from viewing every situation through a filter of old fears and disappointments. It's like standing before a beautiful, clear window while wearing glasses covered in mud. You can blame the world outside for being ugly and dark, but in truth, it's your own lens that needs cleaning. This is why we often feel trapped, repeating the same patterns again and again. We think we are making new choices, meeting new people, or entering new situations. But really, we are reliving the past. Our old lenses ensure that we keep recreating what we already know. This is why certain struggles, like conflict in relationships, financial hardship, or self-sabotage, show up repeatedly. It's not because the universe is against us. It's because our perception hasn't shifted. We keep looking through the same lens, and so we keep creating the same experience. The most powerful realization you can have is this: you are not your lens. You have the ability to step back and see the lens itself. This moment of awareness is the beginning of true freedom. It's like realizing, for the first time, that you've been wearing someone else's glasses all your life, and suddenly, you can take them off. When you become aware of these old filters, you don't have to fight them or judge them. You simply notice them with compassion. Maybe you see how a belief was passed down from your parents, who were doing the best they could with the tools they had. Maybe you recognize how society taught you to fear certain things, or to doubt your own worth. This awareness alone begins to loosen the grip those lenses have on you. But awareness must be paired with choice. Each moment, you are given the chance to see through a different lens, to view life with fresh eyes, free from old assumptions. This doesn't happen all at once. It's a gentle, ongoing practice, like wiping clean a window a little more each day. The first time you experience this shift, it feels almost miraculous. Suddenly, someone you thought was an enemy reveals themselves to be a teacher. A situation you believed was hopeless begins to glow with new possibilities. You realize that what you're seeing is not fixed. It's flexible, responsive to your inner state. And here's the most profound part. As you change the way you see, you change what you experience. The old patterns begin to dissolve, not because the outer world magically fixes itself, but because you are no longer unconsciously recreating them. You stop living on autopilot and start truly living. So I invite you to pause for a moment and consider, what lenses are you looking through right now? Whose beliefs, whose wounds, whose fears are shaping what you see? As you ask these questions with honesty and compassion, the fog begins to lift, and in that clarity, you discover a freedom you may have forgotten was even possible. The freedom to see life as it truly is, rather than as you've been conditioned to believe it must be. 3. Breaking the old loop. Life often feels like a wheel that never stops turning. You wake up each day with the same thoughts. You react with the same emotions. You take the same actions. And unsurprisingly, you end up with the same results. Then, those results confirm the beliefs you started with. And the cycle begins again. Round and round it goes. Until one day you realize you're not truly living. You're simply replaying a script you didn't even know you were reading from. This cycle can feel suffocating, like being caught in a whirlpool. It pulls you down, spinning you in circles, convincing you that there's no way out. And the more you struggle against it, the stronger its grip becomes. It's like quicksand. The harder you fight, the deeper you sink. I've been there. I know what it's like to think, if I just try harder, if I just fix this one thing, maybe everything will change. But no matter how much effort you pour into the outer world, nothing truly shifts, because the loop isn't outside of you. It lives inside, quietly dictating how you see, feel, and respond. The loop begins with observation. You look at life through your old lens, the one shaped by past wounds, fears, and beliefs. That observation sparks an emotion, often rooted in the past rather than the present moment. Your emotion then drives action. Action taken not from clarity, but from unconscious reaction. Those actions lead to results, which you interpret as proof of what you already believed. And then the cycle begins all over again. Here's an example. Imagine someone who grew up feeling unworthy. They look at their relationship and unconsciously expect rejection. That expectation stirs up fear and insecurity, which causes them to act in ways that push their partner away. When the partner withdraws, it seems to prove the belief that they were unworthy all along. The pain deepens, and the loop tightens. It's heartbreaking because it feels so real. The evidence seems undeniable. But what most people don't realize is that they are not seeing reality as it is. They are seeing reality through the filter of the loop. And as long as they keep looking through that filter, the pattern continues endlessly. The natural instinct is to fight it. We tell ourselves, I'll break this pattern no matter what it takes. I'll push through it with sheer willpower. But here's the painful truth. Fighting the loop only strengthens it. Why? Because when you fight, you are still engaging with it on its own terms. You're still feeding it your attention, your energy, your belief that it has power over you. And in the quantum field, what you focus on expands. The way out isn't through struggle, it's through awareness. The moment you begin to see the loop clearly, without judgment, something shifts. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. The darkness doesn't fight back. It simply disappears. Awareness allows you to step back and say, I see you. This is the pattern. This is the old story playing out. When you do this, you're no longer trapped inside the cycle. You become the witness instead of the participant. And in that space, the pattern begins to lose its power. This doesn't mean you never feel the pull again. The whirlpool might still swirl, trying to draw you back in. But now, you have a choice. You can breathe. You can pause. You can decide to respond differently, even if it's just a small shift at first. It's like standing at a fork in the road you've walked 1,000 times. One path is well-worn, familiar, and automatic. The other is new, uncertain, and maybe even a little scary. Choosing the new path doesn't feel natural at first, but each time you take a step in that direction, you weaken the old pattern and strengthen the new one. Over time, as you continue to observe with awareness rather than react with habit, the loop begins to dissolve. The old story loses its grip because you are no longer feeding it with your attention. And in its place, something beautiful emerges: freedom. Freedom doesn't come from forcing life to change. It comes from realizing that you are not the loop, you are the light shining on it. Just as darkness disappears when light enters a room, old patterns dissolve when met with the clarity of presence. So the next time you feel caught in the same cycle, remember this: you don't need to fight. You don't need to fix everything all at once. You only need to see clearly and choose differently, moment by moment. And as you do, you'll discover that the whirlpool isn't as deep as you once believed. The story you've been living isn't permanent. With each breath of awareness, you step into a new way of being, one where you are no longer spinning in circles, but moving forward with peace, purpose, and profound freedom. 4. The secret of creation and manifestation. For much of my life, I believed that creating the life I desired meant building something from nothing. I thought I had to force outcomes into existence through sheer willpower, like a sculptor chipping away at a block of stone. This belief was exhausting. Every dream felt like a mountain I had to climb, every goal like a battle I had to fight. And yet, despite all the effort, peace always seemed just out of reach. But then, through my own journey and countless quiet moments of realization, I came to see something far more profound. We do not create from emptiness. Nothing we manifest is truly new. Everything already exists, every possibility, every version of reality, every outcome you could ever imagine. It all lives within what scientists and mystics alike call the quantum field, a vast, invisible ocean of pure potential. Think of it like this. Imagine standing in a room filled with thousands of different radio stations playing at once. Each station represents a different reality, a version of you who is thriving, one who is struggling, one who is healing, one who is afraid. All these frequencies are present in the same space. Right now, you don't have to create a station from scratch. You simply have to tune in to the one you want to hear. This is how creation truly works. You don't force reality into being. You choose it, you align with it, and you allow it to come into form by giving it your attention and your energy. Your focus is like a spotlight in a dark theater. Behind the curtain, countless scenes are ready to unfold. There are entire stories waiting to be told, characters waiting to step into their roles. But nothing happens until the spotlight shines on a specific stage. The moment you focus on one scene, it comes to life. In the same way, when you place your awareness on a possibility in the quantum field, that possibility begins to solidify. It moves from potential into reality. The key is the energy behind your focus. If you focus on what you want with fear, doubt, or desperation, you are actually amplifying the frequency of lack. It's like tuning the radio to static while hoping to hear a beautiful song. No matter how badly you want the music, all you'll hear is noise. But when you focus with love, trust, and expansion, something magical happens. You harmonize with the reality you desire. You become a match for it. And because of that, the universe has no choice but to reflect it back to you. I've witnessed this in my own life many times. There was a period when I was constantly worried about money. No matter how hard I worked, it felt like abundance was always slipping through my fingers. Then one day, in a moment of deep stillness, I realized that my fear wasn't just about money, it was creating my experience of lack. I was constantly observing life through the lens of not enough. And so, everywhere I looked, reality confirmed that belief. I decided to try something radical. Instead of focusing on what I didn't have, I began to focus on what already felt abundant. Sometimes, it was something simple, like the warmth of sunlight on my skin, or the taste of clean water. As I practiced this shift, my energy began to change. I started tuning into a frequency of gratitude and sufficiency. And slowly, my outer circumstances began to reflect that inner shift. Opportunities appeared, relationships healed, and abundance began to flow in ways I could never have planned. This is the power of conscious observation. When you look at life through the eyes of love and openness, you invite realities that match that vibration. But when you look through the eyes of fear, you only reinforce the very things you want to escape. The beauty of this truth is that it gives you freedom. You don't have to fix the entire world. You don't have to push against the things you don't like. You only need to choose moment by moment the frequency you want to live from. Your choice becomes your offering to the field, and the field responds in kind. It's like standing at the edge of a vast ocean and watching the waves. You can't control the entire sea, but you can choose which wave you ride. When you choose with clarity and love, the wave carries you effortlessly to new shores. So, if there's one thing I want you to remember, it's this. Creation isn't about struggle. It's about alignment. You already hold within you the power to choose which reality you'll experience. And the moment you shift your focus from fear to love, from contraction to expansion, you step into a world that was waiting for you all along. Everything you've ever dreamed of is already here. All you need to do is tune in and watch it unfold. 5. The scientific experiment that reveals the power of observation. Sometimes the most profound truths about life hide in plain sight, waiting for us to slow down enough to notice them. For centuries, mystics and spiritual teachers have spoken of the mind's ability to shape reality, but many dismissed it as mere philosophy or wishful thinking. Then came a simple yet groundbreaking experiment, one that would change how we understand the very fabric of existence: the double-slit experiment. At first glance, this experiment seems almost too ordinary to matter. Imagine a wall with two small slits cut into it, and a screen set up behind it to catch particles, like tiny bits of light or matter. Scientists began by firing these particles at the slits, expecting them to behave in predictable ways. And when no one was watching, the particles didn't act like individual solid objects at all. Instead, they spread out like waves of energy, overlapping and creating a beautiful, complex interference pattern on the screen. It was as if each particle existed in many places at once, dancing freely in a field of infinite possibilities. But here's where the story takes a mysterious and mind-bending turn. When scientists decided to observe the experiment, when they set up a measuring device to track which slit each particle went through, the behavior changed completely. The particles stopped acting like waves and suddenly behaved like solid, individual bits of matter. The interference pattern vanished. The very act of watching had transformed the outcome. Pause and let that sink in for a moment. The only thing that changed was whether or not there was an observer. Nothing else. Not the slits, not the particles, not the process, just the presence of awareness itself. This discovery sent shockwaves through the world of physics, because it suggested something almost unthinkable. Observation does not merely record reality, it shapes it. The moment attention is directed toward a possibility, that possibility collapses into a single, concrete form. Before that moment, countless outcomes exist in a kind of energetic soup, what we call the quantum field. After observation, only one outcome remains. For a long time, this was treated as a strange, quirky feature of the subatomic world, something relevant only in the sterile environment of a laboratory. But the more deeply we explore this mystery, the more it becomes clear that this principle is not confined to particles of light. It applies to everything: your relationships, your health, your finances, your dreams. You see, your life is the ultimate double-slit experiment. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, Every belief you hold is like a lens of observation. When you focus on something, you are not just noticing it, you are giving it shape, giving it energy, giving it permission to exist. And just like those particles, the world around you responds to the quality of your attention. Think about this in practical terms. When you look at your life through the eyes of fear, you strengthen fear. When you observe a problem with anger or frustration, you feed it more energy. But when you shift your focus to gratitude, to love, to openness, you call forth an entirely different reality. Your attention is like a tuning fork that sets the tone for what emerges next. I've seen this play out countless times in my own journey. There were moments when I felt trapped in cycles of scarcity and self-doubt. No matter how hard I worked, the same struggles kept appearing. It wasn't until I realized that I was constantly observing my life through the lens of lack, checking my bank account with dread, replaying mistakes in my mind, that I understood why nothing was changing. My focus was collapsing reality into the very outcome I didn't want. So, I began to experiment in my own way. Each day, I practiced shifting my observation not by ignoring reality, but by viewing it through a different frequency. When fear arose, I noticed it without judgment and gently turned my focus toward possibility instead of limitation. It felt awkward at first, even a little unbelievable. But over time, I noticed something astonishing. The outer world began to shift in ways I couldn't logically explain. Opportunities appeared out of nowhere. Relationships healed. Paths opened that had previously been hidden. It was as if life itself was whispering, "I have always been responding to you. Now that you are seeing differently, I can show you something new." This is why the double-slit experiment is so much more than a scientific curiosity. It's a profound mirror of how existence truly works. You are not a passive bystander in this universe. You are a co-creator. Your attention is not neutral, it is creative. When you grasp this, everything changes. You stop feeling like a victim of random circumstances and begin to understand that you hold immense power, not through control or force, but through the gentle, consistent act of conscious observation. So, the next time you find yourself staring at a situation you wish could change, remember the particles in that experiment. Remember that your gaze is not just looking, it is shaping. And in that moment, you hold the quiet, miraculous power to choose which reality will come to life. 6. Shifting your inner frequency to transform reality. There's a moment in life when you finally realize that no amount of rearranging the outside world will bring you lasting peace. It usually comes after you've tried everything, changing jobs, moving to new places, seeking different relationships, chasing dreams, or even running from old wounds. And yet, no matter how much you shift the external pieces, the same patterns keep showing up. It's like walking in circles, only to find yourself right back where you started. This is because the world around you is not separate from you. It's a mirror, quietly reflecting back the state of your inner being. Just as a mirror cannot change its reflection on its own, the outer world cannot truly transform unless the inner world transforms first. Think about it this way: when you stand before a mirror with a frown on your face, you don't reach out and try to physically push the corners of the reflection's mouth upward. That would be absurd. You simply smile, and the reflection changes effortlessly. Life works the same way. If you try to control the reflection, the people, the circumstances, the events, you end up frustrated and exhausted. But when you focus inward, shifting your own frequency, the outer reflection naturally adjusts to match. For a long time, I didn't understand this. I thought my peace depended on fixing everything and everyone around me. I tried to manage, control, and manipulate the world so that I could finally feel safe and whole. But every time I solved one problem, another one appeared. It was like playing a never-ending game of whack-a-mole with my own life. Eventually, I reached a breaking point. a moment of deep surrender. And in that stillness, I saw something so simple. It almost felt like a secret. Nothing out there could change until I changed in here. It wasn't the world that was broken. It was the lens I was looking through that was clouded. We all carry an inner lens, shaped by our past experiences, our fears, and the beliefs we've inherited from others. If that lens is smudged with old pain, every situation you look at will seem distorted. You'll misinterpret events, assume the worst, and repeat old patterns without even realizing it. But when you begin to clean that lens, when you release the fear, heal the wounds, and let go of limiting beliefs, you start to see life with new clarity. This is what I mean by changing your inner frequency. It's not about pretending to be happy or forcing yourself to think positive thoughts. It's about genuinely shifting the vibration you carry at the deepest level. Your emotions, your beliefs, and even the quiet stories you tell yourself all contribute to this frequency. And the universe, like a perfect mirror, reflects it back to you. I've experienced this firsthand. There were times when I felt trapped in a cycle of conflict and scarcity. No matter how hard I worked, nothing seemed to move forward. Then, through deep inner work meditation, forgiveness, and honest self-reflection, I began to soften the fears that had been running my life. As my inner world grew calmer and clearer, my outer world began to shift in ways that felt almost miraculous. Relationships healed without me forcing them. Opportunities appeared seemingly out of nowhere. It was as if life had been waiting all along for me to align with a new frequency. Here's the profound truth. Reality is not fixed, it's responsive. It listens to you, not to your words or wishes, but to the energy you embody. If you live from a place of fear, the world reflects situations that confirm that fear. If you live from a place of love and trust, life begins to mirror that back to you as well. This is why true transformation begins with inner work. If you focus only on changing the outer reflection, you may see temporary shifts, but they won't last. Like wiping a dirty mirror while leaving the grime on your own face. The distortion will always return, but when you turn inward and clean the source, the beliefs, emotions, and patterns within you create change that is deep and sustainable. Of course, this inner work is not always easy. It requires courage to face what you've been avoiding, patience to sit with uncomfortable feelings, and compassion to forgive yourself for the times you've acted from pain. But every step you take toward healing is a step toward freedom. And as your inner frequency rises, the outer world rises to meet you. So if you're feeling stuck right now, take a moment to pause. Instead of asking, "How can I fix this out there?" gently ask, "What within me is ready to shift?" This simple question opens the door to transformation, because the truth is, you don't need to force the mirror to change. You only need to change the one standing in front of it. When you tend to your inner world with love and awareness, life responds in ways that can feel nothing short of miraculous. Not because the world suddenly became perfect, but because you began to see and experience it through a clearer, more radiant lens. And in that clarity, you realize that peace was never something you had to chase. It was something you had the power to create all along. 7. From reaction to creation. For most of my life, I moved through my days without really noticing how much of it was driven by reaction. Someone would say something hurtful, and I would respond in anger. A plan would fall apart, and I would sink into frustration or despair. It felt automatic, as though the world pressed a button, and I simply reacted. Like a puppet pulled by invisible strings, there was no space, no choice. Only the same patterns repeating over and over again. This is how most of us live. We don't realize that we've become characters in a play we didn't even know we were performing in. We speak the lines we were taught as children, follow the directions given by society, and reenact old stories inherited from our past. And because we don't know we're in a play, We never think to question the script. We assume this is just how life is. But there comes a moment, if you're willing to see it, when you wake up in the middle of the scene, suddenly, you realize, wait, I'm not just a character. I'm also the writer. I'm the director. I get to decide how this story unfolds. This is the beginning of true freedom. The shift from reaction to creation isn't about controlling every detail of your life. It's not about forcing circumstances or manipulating other people. It's about reclaiming your inner power, the power to choose how you see, how you feel, and how you respond. When you live in reaction, you're always a step behind life. Something happens, and you scramble to keep up. You feel like the world is constantly happening to you, and you're at its mercy. But when you live in creation, you move from a deeper place. Instead of reacting to the outer world, you act from your inner truth. You're no longer just responding to events. You're shaping the energy that calls those events into being. This doesn't mean that challenges disappear. Life will still bring you surprises, some of them painful. The difference is how you meet them. When you're reactive, every challenge feels like an attack, something to fight against. But when you're creative, you approach challenges with curiosity and presence. You see them not as enemies, but as invitations, opportunities to grow, to shift, to tell a new story. I remember a time in my life when I was deeply caught in reaction. Every little thing set me off a harsh word from someone I loved. An unexpected bill in the mail, even a traffic jam. My peace was fragile because it depended entirely on everything going my way. I lived in a constant state of tension, always bracing for the next disruption. Then, slowly, through practice and inner work, I began to notice something profound. Between the event and my reaction, there was a tiny space, a pause. At first, it felt almost invisible. But the more I paid attention, the more I realized that this pause was everything. In that space, I had a choice. I didn't have to react out of old habits or old wounds. I could breathe, step back, and choose a response that aligned with the person I wanted to be. Over time, this practice transformed my life. I began to notice that when I chose my response instead of reacting automatically, the entire energy of a situation could shift. A conversation that might have spiraled into conflict could soften into understanding. A problem that once felt overwhelming could become a doorway to unexpected solutions. It was as though I had discovered a hidden lever, one that allowed me to shape my reality from the inside out. Here's the beautiful truth. Your greatest power doesn't come from controlling the outer world. It comes from mastering your inner world. The way you see and feel about life is like a tuning fork, sending out vibrations that the universe responds to. If you react with fear and resistance, you create more fear and resistance. If you respond with clarity and love, you invite more harmony and possibility. This is why shifting from reaction to creation matters so deeply. It's not just about having a calmer mind or better relationships. It's about stepping into your role as a conscious co-creator of your life. You move from being a character in someone else's story to being the author of your own. So, the next time life challenges you, pause. Notice the space between the event and your response. In that space lies your freedom. Breathe into it. Ask yourself, what story do I want to tell right now? Who do I choose to be in this moment? Each time you choose with awareness, you rewrite the script. You transform reaction into creation, chaos into clarity, and pain into purpose. And slowly, moment by moment, you begin to live not as a victim of circumstance, but as the conscious creator you were always meant to be. 8. Applying this understanding to everyday life. There's a moment when this idea stops being just a concept and becomes something you can feel in your bones. It's the moment you realize that every thought you think, every emotion you feel, isn't just something happening inside your head. It's an act of creation. It's an energetic broadcast, sent out into the field of life, shaping what comes back to you. We often underestimate the power of our inner world because we've been taught to focus only on action and words. We're told that if we work hard enough, speak clearly enough, and plan carefully enough, life will reward us. But there's something far more fundamental happening beneath the surface. The energy behind our actions matters more than the actions themselves. The quantum field, the invisible web of possibility that surrounds us, doesn't respond to what we say we want. It responds to the frequency we consistently feel. This means that if you're saying, "I want abundance," but deep down you're carrying fear and scarcity, the field doesn't hear your words. It only hears the vibration of lack. Think of it like planting a seed. You can stand over the soil every day and shout, "Grow, grow." But if the soil is dry, if it's not nourished and cared for, nothing will sprout. Your words alone don't create growth. It's the invisible care, the water, the sunlight, the nutrients that allow life to flourish. Your feelings are like that invisible care. They are the soil in which your reality grows. Let's take money as an example. Many people check their bank account with a tight chest and a heavy heart. Even if they don't say it out loud, their energy is filled with fear. There's never enough. I'm always behind. I'll never get ahead. Each time they do this, they are unconsciously observing their life through the lens of scarcity. And because observation shapes reality, the outer world reflects that scarcity back to them: unexpected bills, missed opportunities, constant struggle. I've been there myself. I remember a season when, no matter how hard I worked, it felt like money was slipping through my fingers like water. The turning point came when I realized that my fear wasn't just a reaction to my circumstances. It was part of what was creating them. I began to experiment with a new way of observing. Instead of checking my account with dread, I started approaching it with gratitude. Even if the numbers were small, I would pause and feel thankful for what was there. It felt awkward at first, almost like pretending. But over time, something shifted inside me. My energy softened. My fear began to loosen its grip. And slowly, the outer circumstances began to change too. Unexpected opportunities appeared. A sense of trust replaced the constant anxiety. It wasn't magic, it was alignment. The same principle applies to love. If you look at your relationships through a lens of suspicion or insecurity, you'll see evidence to confirm those fears. A delayed text message becomes a sign of rejection. A simple disagreement turns into proof that you're not truly loved. But if you shift your inner frequency to one of openness and trust, you begin to notice different things. That same delayed message no longer feels threatening. A disagreement becomes a doorway to deeper understanding. The relationship itself begins to grow because you are no longer feeding it with fear. This doesn't mean you ignore red flags or pretend everything is perfect. It simply means you stop unconsciously reinforcing the very realities you don't want. You start observing with intention, aware that your inner state is always shaping what appears in your outer world. The beautiful thing about this practice is that it doesn't require dramatic effort. It begins in small, simple moments. The way you wake up in the morning, the energy you bring to a conversation, the feeling you hold as you make a decision. Each of these is an act of observation, a subtle yet powerful signal you send to the quantum field. Over time, these small choices add up. You begin to notice that life feels different not because the outer world suddenly fixed itself, but because you are showing up differently. The mirror has no choice but to reflect the shift. So today, I invite you to notice the frequency you're broadcasting, not with judgment, but with gentle curiosity. When you catch yourself spiraling into fear, pause, take a breath, ask yourself, what am I really observing right now? What frequency am I feeding? Then, even if it's just for a moment, choose a higher frequency. Choose gratitude over worry, trust over doubt, Love over fear. Because every time you do, you are reshaping your life, not through force or control, but through the quiet, consistent power of conscious observation. And in that choice, you begin to experience the profound truth that has always been waiting beneath the surface. You are not merely reacting to life, you are actively creating it, moment by moment. 9. Illustrated through real-life examples. There's a quiet tragedy that plays out in so many lives, and it often goes unnoticed because it feels so real to the person living it. It's the way our old wounds silently shape what we see, and in doing so, shape what we create. We think we're reacting to life as it is, when in truth, we're often reacting to life through the lens of our past pain, and without realizing it, we end up bringing the very thing we fear most into being. Imagine someone who has been abandoned in the past. Perhaps, as a child, they felt unseen or unloved by a parent. Or maybe later in life, they went through a heartbreak that cut deeply, leaving scars they never fully healed. Now, they step into a new relationship, hopeful and ready to start again. On the surface, everything seems promising. Their partner is kind, attentive, and genuine, but deep inside, the old wound still whispers, "Don't trust this. It won't last. Sooner or later, they'll leave you too." At first, these fears may be subtle, almost invisible, but over time, they begin to color the way this person observes their relationship. A delayed text message suddenly feels like a warning sign. A busy day without much communication becomes proof of rejection. Even a simple difference of opinion is interpreted as a threat. None of these things are inherently dangerous, but because the person is looking through the old lens of abandonment, they see danger where there is none. And when they see it, they feel it. The fear rises, the body tightens, and emotions swell. And as the fear grows, so do the actions that come from it. Accusations, clinging, defensiveness, or withdrawal. Their partner, who may have begun the relationship with love and good intentions, starts to feel smothered or misunderstood. They may pull away, not because they wanted to leave, but because they feel trapped by a dynamic they don't understand. And in that moment, the person's deepest fear comes true, not because it was inevitable, but because the fear itself shaped the very outcome they dreaded. This is how observation works in the most intimate corners of our lives. It's not about logic or what makes sense on the surface. It's about the vibration we carry and the story we believe beneath our words. The quantum field, the invisible realm of energy and possibility, isn't responding to what we say we want. It's responding to what we feel is true. And this pattern isn't limited to love. It shows up everywhere. Consider money. If you've ever lived through a time of scarcity, you know how deeply those memories can sink into your bones. Even years later, when your circumstances may have improved, you might still approach money with the same fear. You open your bank account with dread, half expecting to find disaster waiting there. You hesitate to invest in yourself, certain that the rug will be pulled out from under you. Even when money flows in, it never feels safe, like water slipping through cupped hands. And just like in the relationship example, that inner fear begins to shape outer reality. Opportunities are missed because you're too afraid to take them. Unexpected bills seem to appear out of nowhere, reinforcing the belief that there's never enough. It's not that life is punishing you. It's that the frequency of lack is collapsing reality into the very form you've been unconsciously observing. The same is true for health. Someone who has been ill for a long time may become so identified with their illness that even as their body begins to heal, they continue to see themselves as sick. They notice every small ache or pain and interpret it as a sign of relapse. They expect setbacks, and so their energy remains tied to suffering rather than vitality. Their cells respond to that vibration because the body and mind are never truly separate. I've lived parts of this truth myself. There was a time when I carried unhealed wounds that quietly dictated how I moved through the world. I didn't know it then, but I was constantly scanning for evidence to confirm my fears. And of course, I found it because when you're looking through a certain lens, that's all you can see. It wasn't until I began to question my own perception, to pause and ask, is this really happening? Or is this my old story playing out again, that the cycle began to loosen its grip? Here's the thing, none of this makes you broken or weak. It simply makes you human. We've all been hurt. We've all carried beliefs and patterns that no longer serve us. But when you become aware of them, you reclaim your power. You stop living as a victim of the past and begin to create from the present moment. The moment you shift your observation even slightly, you shift your reality. You begin to see your partner not as a threat, but as a fellow traveler on the path of love. You begin to see money not as an enemy, but as a flow of energy that you can learn to dance with. You begin to see your body not as broken, but as a miraculous vessel capable of healing. And as your inner vision changes, the outer world has no choice but to reflect that change back to you. Not because the universe suddenly started favoring you, but because you are finally seeing clearly. You are no longer trapped by the old lens of fear. This is the power of observation in everyday life. It's not abstract or mystical. It's deeply practical and profoundly personal. The way you see shapes, the way you live, and the way you love. 10. Raising your frequency through breath and presence. There is a profound simplicity in the way life speaks to us. It doesn't always come in grand revelations or dramatic changes. Sometimes, it speaks through something so subtle, so ordinary, that we overlook its power entirely. Our breath. For most of us, breathing happens in the background, unnoticed. We take thousands of breaths each day without ever pausing to truly feel them. And yet, the breath is far more than a biological function. It is a bridge. A living thread that connects your inner world to the infinite field of energy around you. When you breathe with awareness, you are not just taking in air, you are tuning your frequency, like adjusting the dial on a radio to find a clearer signal. Your breath carries the power to calm the storm of your mind, to soothe the body, and to bring you back into harmony with the present moment. I learned this lesson during one of the darkest seasons of my life. At that time, my thoughts were like a relentless river, rushing so fast that I felt like I was drowning in them. I was consumed by regrets of the past and anxieties about the future. Sleep didn't come easily, and even when it did, my mind never rested. It was as if I was trapped in a loop I couldn't escape, a cycle of overthinking and fear that left me exhausted and disconnected. One evening, in sheer desperation, I sat down on the floor and closed my eyes. I didn't know what else to do, so I simply began to notice my breath. At first, it felt awkward and forced, like trying to control something that had always been automatic. But slowly, I began to follow each inhale and exhale, allowing my breath to deepen naturally. In and out, in and out. With each breath, my racing thoughts began to soften. The noise didn't disappear all at once, but there was a growing sense of space between me and the storm inside my head. In that stillness, I discovered something remarkable. Every breath was an invitation to return home. Each inhale whispered, "You are here." Each exhale reminded me, "You are safe." The past and the future didn't matter in that moment. What mattered was the simple, undeniable truth that I was alive, breathing, and present. From a scientific perspective, this practice is more than just calming. Slow, conscious breathing signals to your nervous system that you are safe. It helps release stress hormones and brings the body into balance. From a spiritual perspective, it's even more powerful. With each intentional breath, you align your inner frequency with the vast quantum field of possibility. You step out of the chaotic loops of old patterns and open yourself to new realities. Think of it this way: the past lives in your mind. In stories and memories, you replay again and again. The future lives in your imagination, filled with hopes and fears about what might come. But the breath only exists here. Now, it is always present, always real. When you focus on your breath, you anchor yourself in the only place where true change can happen, the present moment. This is why mindfulness teachers across cultures and centuries have placed such importance on breathing. It's not about technique or perfection. It's about returning to yourself, moment by moment. Because when you are truly present, even for just a few breaths, you break free from the loops of the past. You stop recreating old realities and begin to touch the infinite possibilities that surround you. I often think of breath as a kind of spiritual reset button. No matter how tangled your thoughts become, no matter how heavy your heart feels, one deep, conscious breath can begin to shift everything. It's like opening a window in a stuffy room and letting in a fresh breeze. Suddenly, there's space where there was suffocation, clarity where there was confusion. If you want to experience this for yourself, try a simple practice. Place your hand gently over your heart. Close your eyes. Breathe in slowly through your nose, imagining that you are drawing in light, peace, and healing energy. Hold it for a moment, letting that energy fill you. Then exhale through your mouth, releasing tension, fear, and anything you no longer need. Repeat this a few times, and notice how your body begins to relax, how your mind begins to quiet. Over time, these small moments of conscious breathing create a profound shift. Your frequency begins to rise. You start to respond to life from a place of clarity rather than chaos. Opportunities that once seemed invisible come into focus. Relationships begin to feel lighter, more harmonious, and perhaps most importantly, you reconnect with the deepest part of yourself, the part that has always been whole and unbroken. The beauty of this practice is that it's always available to you. You don't need special equipment or perfect circumstances. You don't need to wait for a retreat or a quiet weekend. Your breath is with you right now, in this very moment, ready to guide you home. Each conscious breath is a reminder you are here. You are alive. You are connected to the vast, mysterious dance of life. And as you return to this simple truth again and again, you begin to see that what you thought was ordinary has always been sacred. Through breath and presence, you step into the space where miracles are born, not because you forced them to happen, but because you finally aligned yourself with the natural rhythm of the universe. 11. The power of choice. There is a quiet, hidden truth about this very moment. A truth so vast it can feel almost impossible to comprehend. Right now, as you listen to these words, there are countless versions of reality unfolding side by side. In one version, you are stuck, repeating the same painful cycles over and over again. In another, you are free, thriving, living with a sense of purpose and flow. And beyond these, there are thousands of other possibilities, like threads of a great cosmic tapestry stretching out in every direction. Most of us move through life as if there is only one fixed reality, one unchangeable story. We believe the past has carved a permanent path for us, and our only role is to walk it. But the deeper truth is this: every moment holds infinite potential, and what determines which version of reality solidifies is not chance, nor external circumstances. It is the focus of your awareness. Think of your life like a grand hallway lined with countless doors. Behind each door is a different version of you, living a different experience. The doors are all there, waiting, but only the door you choose to open will become the reality you step into. And here's the surprising part. You don't open these doors with effort or logic. You open them with energy. The frequency you carry, the vibration of your thoughts, your emotions, your deepest beliefs is what turns the handle. It is not your rational mind that chooses which door will open, but the state of being you dwell, in moment by moment. Let me share an example. Imagine you wake up in the morning feeling anxious and overwhelmed. Maybe you replay old mistakes in your mind, or dread the challenges of the day ahead. Without realizing it, you're tuning yourself to a frequency of fear and scarcity. From this energy, when the world you encounter will reflect those feelings back to you. Small inconveniences feel like major setbacks. A passing comment from someone feels like criticism. Opportunities seem invisible, even when they're right in front of you. You've opened the door to a timeline where everything feels heavy and stuck. But imagine instead that you begin your day with a moment of stillness. You take a few conscious breaths. You focus on one thing. You're grateful for something simple and real, like the warmth of sunlight on your skin or the sound of a loved one's voice. Slowly, your energy begins to shift. The fear loosens its grip, replaced by a quiet sense of trust. From this new state of being, you start to notice things you couldn't see before. A solution appears where there was once only a problem. A stranger offers kindness. A door opens that had seemed locked. The outer circumstances may not have changed dramatically in that moment, but the reality you experience has shifted completely. By changing your inner frequency, you've chosen a different timeline. This is not magic in the way we've been taught to think of it. It's alignment. It's resonance. Just like a tuning fork will only vibrate when struck by a matching note. The universe responds to the energy you embody. When you live in a state of fear, you resonate with realities that confirm that fear. When you live in a state of love and expansion, you align with realities that reflect freedom and abundance. I've seen this in my own life more times than I can count. There were seasons when I felt trapped, certain that nothing would ever change. I thought my circumstances were the problem, but in truth, it was my energy that kept me locked in the same loop. When I began to shift my focus not by forcing positive thoughts, but by gently tending to my inner state, everything around me began to reorganize. The relationships that were meant for me deepened, opportunities I never expected appeared, and slowly, I realized I was no longer living in the same reality I had been before. The power of choice is not about trying to control life or micromanage every outcome. It's about recognizing that your state of being is the steering wheel of your experience. You don't have to figure out how everything will unfold. You simply need to align yourself with the frequency of the reality you wish to experience and trust that the field will respond. So ask yourself, what energy am I embodying right now? Am I focusing on doors I don't want to walk through, doors of fear, lack, and limitation? Or am I aligning with the doors of love, trust, and possibility? Every breath, every moment, is a chance to choose again. Even if you've been walking a path of pain for years, you can shift today, right now. It doesn't require force. It requires presence. It requires the willingness to see that you are not trapped by your past, but empowered by the choices you make in the present. In the end, the greatest freedom you have is this. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change before you feel free. You can change your frequency now. And when you do, the timeline you experience will rise to meet you, like a door swinging open, revealing a life you've always known was possible, quietly waiting for you to step inside. 12. Transcending the old cycle through love and trust. For so much of our lives, we are taught to believe that change comes from control. We are told that if we want something different, we must manage every detail, fix every flaw, and fight every battle. We spend countless hours planning, analyzing, and striving, gripping life tightly in our hands, as though sheer effort could bend reality to our will. But if you've ever lived this way, you know how exhausting it is. No matter how hard you try, there's always something slipping through the cracks. The more you attempt to control, the more chaos seems to rise up to meet you. It's like trying to calm the surface of a lake by splashing at the waves with your hands. The harder you fight, the more turbulence you create. The truth is both simpler and more profound. You don't have to control reality to transform it. You only need to change the place from which you observe it. When you look at life through fear and judgment, everything appears sharp and distorted. It's like wearing glasses smudged with grime, no matter how beautiful the world might be. All you see are stains and shadows. From this place, even small problems feel overwhelming, and even moments of peace seem fragile, fleeting. Your reactions ripple outward, creating more of the very tension you are trying to escape. But when you begin to observe from love and trust, something extraordinary happens. You no longer need to wrestle with every wave, because you become like the still, calm surface of the lake. Just as a tranquil lake reflects the sky with perfect clarity, your inner calm begins to reflect back into the outer world. This doesn't mean you ignore challenges or pretend that pain doesn't exist. It simply means you meet life as it is, without adding layers of resistance. When a difficulty arises, instead of rushing to fix it or labeling it as bad, you pause, you breathe, you acknowledge it with a soft heart, like saying to life, "I see you. I trust that you are part of something larger than I can understand." In that moment, you shift the entire energy of the situation. You step out of the old cycle, the one where you react, resist, and repeat the same patterns, and into a new space of creation. This space isn't built on force, it's built on alignment. I've experienced this many times in my own life. There were seasons when I tried to control everything: my work, my relationships, even my own healing. I thought if I just tried harder, planned better, and kept pushing, I could finally find peace. But the more I tried, the more life pushed back. It felt like standing in the middle of a storm, desperately trying to hold up an umbrella that kept blowing inside out. Then one day, something inside me gave way. I was too tired to fight anymore. Instead of forcing, I simply surrendered, not in defeat, but in quiet trust. I sat in stillness and whispered to life, "Show me, guide me. I am willing to see differently." And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, things began to shift. The external chaos didn't vanish overnight, but my relationship to it changed. I became less like the storm and more like the calm eye at its center. This is the power of love and trust. When you release the need to control, you stop feeding the old patterns that keep you trapped. Your energy softens, and the world around you responds in kind. New solutions appear, not because you forced them, but because you created the space for them to emerge. Think of a seed planted in the earth. You don't pry open the soil every day to check if it's growing. You water it, you nurture it, and most importantly, you trust the process. In the same way, love and trust are the nurturing forces of your life. They allow new realities to take root and grow, even when you can't yet see the evidence. It takes courage to live this way. Fear will try to pull you back into the old cycle, whispering that you must control or else everything will fall apart. But fear is like a loud, frantic voice, shouting over the quiet truth beneath it. When you choose to listen to love instead, you return to your natural state of harmony. And here's the most beautiful part: the moment you find peace within, the outer world begins to reflect it back to you. Not because life has suddenly become perfect, but because your perception has shifted. The same circumstances that once felt chaotic now seem softer, more manageable. The same people who once triggered you may begin to respond differently, simply because your energy has changed. This is how transformation really works. It's not about rearranging the external pieces of your life. It's about cultivating stillness and trust within yourself, so that the world around you can naturally reorganize in response. So, when you feel overwhelmed or trapped in old patterns, to remember this: you don't need to fight the waves. You don't need to fix everything at once. You only need to return to the quiet center within you, the place of love. the place of trust. From there, you will see clearly. And when you see clearly, the world will reflect that clarity back, like the calm surface of a lake mirroring the open sky. In that reflection, you'll discover the profound truth that has always been there. You were never powerless, never broken. You were simply invited to see through new eyes. And in doing so, you become the very change you've been seeking. The power of seeing differently. You don't need to run from your old reality, nor do you need to push and strain to create a brand new one. The real transformation doesn't come from escape or force. It comes from a shift so subtle and profound that, at first, it feels almost invisible. Seeing differently. When you try to fight the old reality, you only feed it with your attention. When you desperately chase a new one, you create more struggle and distance between where you are and where you wish to be. But when you simply pause, take a breath, and choose to observe from a place of love and trust, something extraordinary begins to happen. The world softens, the noise quiets, and what was once tangled starts to unravel. Not because you fixed it, but because you no longer keep it bound with your fear. Everything you've ever longed for has never been far away. It's been here all along, quietly waiting, like a seed beneath the soil. Peace, freedom, abundance, love. These aren't things you must hunt for in the outside world. They are states of being that already exist within you. The moment you shift your perception, you begin to notice what has been hidden in plain sight. Imagine lifting a veil to reveal a beautiful landscape that was there the whole time. This is what happens when you choose to see through the eyes of gratitude, love, and trust. The landscape doesn't suddenly appear, it was always there. But now, for the first time, you can truly experience it. The universe does not respond to pleading words or frantic effort. It doesn't hear the desperate prayers of a mind tangled in worry. It responds to the quiet, steady vibration of your being. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. This is why the work is never about chasing something outside of yourself. It's about becoming the frequency of the reality you wish to live. Each moment offers you a choice. Even in the midst of chaos, you can pause and ask yourself, how am I seeing this? What energy am I bringing to this moment? And in that simple act of awareness, you shift your entire trajectory. You step off the old path of fear and step onto a new path of presence. When you choose to see differently, your life begins to ripple outward in ways you cannot fully measure. The people around you feel your calm, your openness, your trust, and they begin to soften too. In this way, you don't just transform your own experience, you raise the frequency of the collective. Your healing becomes a gift to the world. So remember this, you are not merely an extra in someone else's story. You are the writer of the script, the director of the scene, and the light that brings it all to life. Every thought, every feeling, every act of observation is a brushstroke on the canvas of your reality. And here is the beautiful paradox: the moment you truly believe this, not just as an idea, but as a deep inner knowing, the world begins to rearrange itself right before your eyes. What once felt impossible becomes inevitable. What once felt separate becomes whole. You don't need to run. You don't need to fight. You only need to see with clear eyes and an open heart. When you do, you will discover that reality itself bends to meet you, like a mirror reflecting the love and presence you have chosen to embody. The stage is set, the lights are waiting, and you, my dear friend, are both the storyteller and the story. Step forward, choose to see differently, and watch as the entire play of life transforms before you.